Dave and Dujanovic on KSL News Radio.
Welcome back to the show. Dave Noriega and Debbie Dujanovic. Thanks for tuning in with us on the Dave and Dujanovic Show. Monday through Friday, 7 until 9. We're talking about House Bill 379, slated for debate and vote likely tomorrow. What that bill is to abolish the death penalty in Utah.
And when you testified on Capitol Hill last week about this, Dave, were you hoping that the committee would hold it and at least study this for a while before they went ahead and put their stamp of approval on it?
Yes, I had no idea, and I had no idea it was even a bill in existence. I didn't know this was going to happen. This came together very quickly, and the reason it hits my family very close is we had my grandmother and my aunt. They were murdered 27 years ago, and one of their murderers is on death row. So
one of 9 individuals on death row in the state of Utah, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct. Yeah, he's one of the 9.
9 people on death row, and he has been on death row for almost 30 years.
Yeah. And this bill came to our knowledge really in a press release. We found out there was going to be a press conference. We found out on Monday there was going to be a press conference on Tuesday with House committee listening to it on Wednesday. So we found out Monday, heard a press conference on Tuesday, and then we were testifying on Wednesday.
I want to bring Representative Paul Ray into the conversation. Good evening, Paul. How are you tonight?
Good. How are you doing, Debbie? How are you doing, Dave?
Good, thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us on the program. Now, you were in that committee. You were on that committee, if I remember correctly.
That's correct.
Yeah. And give us some insight on this, Representative. Does this bill stand the chance to get past the House tomorrow?
You know, it's going to be a close vote. Myself, Representative Tim Hawks, Representative Lee Perry, Representative Brad Daw, we've been working hard to count votes and to work the body to see if we can get the votes to block it. And at this point, I think we do, but it'll be very close.
Paul, as I look through the polling data that we've had really over the last 20 years, recently, the most recent poll says that desire to keep the death penalty in Utah has been waning, maybe down to the 50%. But really for the past 20 years, you look at polling data, and it has been that Utah has overwhelmingly approved of the death penalty in the high 60s and even up to the high 70 percentile of Utahns that want the death penalty. How did this come about, and why the push? If it's so supported in Utah, why are our representatives putting this bill on the table?
You know, there's been a big push for what they call restorative justice, and so the numbers that you see. The interesting thing, if you go back and actually read the polls, what I've seen on polls when they come over is it'll say, given how long it takes to carry out the death penalty, do you support that? And the answer is most people no, they don't. They wish it'd go quicker. And so I think those are some of the numbers that you're seeing. What's not being talked about, though, Dave and Debbie, is in 2009, Representative McKiff, who was a retired judge, he ran a piece of legislation that actually streamlined the whole appeals process. We've never had anybody sentenced to death since that bill, so we've never tested it. But I think you will see a much slimmer process that will make it go quicker.
We're talking to Representative Paul Ray about House Bill 379. It would abolish the death penalty here in the state of Utah. Representative Ray, it looks like this might come up for a vote tomorrow on the House, and if it passes, it would move to the Senate. I'm wondering your insight on why this, once again, Utah's Capitol Hill seems to be in such a hurry to get something. I mean, this is truly monumental in terms of a policy change. Why the hurry?
You know, I wonder too, Debbie, because first of all, 2 weeks ago we passed a bill by Representative Steve Handy that actually authorized the study of the financial cost of the death penalty, because that's one of the arguments. Now, I guarantee you when that study comes back, it's going to show the death penalty is much cheaper than life without parole. So we just authorized that. There was talk all year that this bill was going to be here, but until a few days ago, until that, right before the committee, the bill had never come up. And then all of a sudden, boom, there it is. And we've had 2 years since the last time they tried this where we said, let's study it, let's bring it to interim. And the groups that were interested in abolishing the death penalty never brought those in for an interim study. So we've given them every opportunity to study and talk about this, and the groups opposing it have not taken advantage of that.
And Representative, you asked for a hold during that committee meeting. That got voted down. So obviously they're not interested in actually the cost, whether it's cost effective, because they just passed legislation or a commission to find out what it really costs. So they say it's better off for the victims. I can tell you, as a representative of the victims, when we were in that committee meeting, I was given two, and I think I just talked through them for another 30 seconds, so I think I got 2.5 minutes. How is that better for the victims? Why are they telling me how the victims should feel?
You know this very well, Dave. We actually, the victims have been very vocal on the fact that they want to keep the death penalty. Now, understand, 2 years ago when this passed the Senate and came to the House, and I was able to get it killed on the final night of the House, they kept saying that the victims did not support. And every victim, or every family of the victims, came up to the Hill that night and said, and including some of your family members, said, hey, we support this. We do not want to do away with this. And they brought people in to say, hey, our family members were victimized, but none of the people they brought in to testify have been from the state of Utah. They've been from Arizona and Georgia. And to talk again about we're talking about, 10% of the people put to death were only put to death. I can't speak for other states, but what I can tell you in Utah is we have the highest bar in the nation to even get put on death row. And since the 1970s, when the Supreme Court reinstituted the death penalty, nobody on Utah's death row has appealed based on innocence. They have all admitted their guilt. And these guys are monsters. These are the most heinous people you'll ever deal with, and they admitted guilt. The appeals are just based on my attorney was an idiot, technicalities.
Right. And this is, Representative Ray, this is my real concern. We were dealing with this a couple years ago. We're doing it again. And let me just tell you, from the victim's point of view, it is so monumentally unsettling and frustrating and difficult for us to talk about this. I will tell you this. This may not pass this year, but if they continue to bring this up every year or every 2 years, not because it has the support of the people, they will have worn us down, because I can tell you we can't continue to keep ripping off this scab year after year as they try to pass their personal agendas. And that's what is so heartbreaking. We fight this so hard, but I can tell you we can't continue doing this because it's just too emotionally draining for us.
Dave, that's a great point, because they say one of the reasons they're doing this is so the victims don't have to continue to talk about it. But the mere fact they keep bringing this on the Hill is forcing you more times than an appeal would to have to come up and talk about it.
Absolutely. Representative Ray, thank you so much for joining us on the line, and we'll keep an eye on how this vote goes down. And thank you so much. I speak not as a talk show host, but as a spokesperson for victims of these violent crimes. Thank you so much for your hard work, and we really appreciate you really being the voice for us.
Dave, my heart goes out to you, and thank you guys for having me on.